What are your thoughts on the impact of Sandoval and amending Title VI?
I think the time is right now to seize the moment and seize the new kind of ethos in this administration to really bring all people along and to address issues of race, issues of class. And what I hope for is that in this new administration that we can revisit Title VI and we can open the doors in our federal courts to allow communities who are experiencing disproportionate impacts in the environmental context to have their stories heard in a court of law and to hold accountable government entities which discriminate or have discriminatory impacts on environmental justice communities.
What are your thoughts on the impact of Sandoval and amending Title VI?
That definitely needs to be done. And I guess you could, maybe that's number 4. But I mean that's the EJ issue, but that's an overall civil rights issue. I mean, I don't deal specifically in civil rights, only in civil rights, only as it pertains to EJ. But I just get the feeling that civil rights in general, civil rights law, is problematic now. I mean, I've talked to people who actually, represent people on civil rights claims and say it's very hard to win anything. So in general, civil rights is an issue, civil rights laws, civil rights actions. But yeah, Sandoval has, from what I can see, is basically left challenging EJ cases or challenging disproportionate pollution cases, siting cases. It's left us without a remedy so far. I'm not an expert, but I think people are scrambling. So fixing Sandoval would really give us a tool, a huge tool. But again, I am a lawyer, but we got to get the community stuff going too. I mean, law is just a tool.
What are your thoughts on the impact of Sandoval and amending Title VI?
I think we need to amend Sandoval, but we also need to have a bigger picture in terms of just trying to go back to where we were. It's like I see people saying that, well, in the last, 10 years we've lost so much ground, whether it's in the environmental statutes, whether it's in the Civil Rights Act era. But we need to really, instead of just trying to go back to where we were, reposition ourselves to where we were. I think we are poised, really, in the civil rights community, in the environmental justice community, to look beyond where we were and really vision for ourselves a different future, if you will. I really believe that we need to look beyond our borders as a country, as a globe, because the environmental movement is far beyond just this country. We need to vision for ourselves a different future, and it has to be inclusive, it has to be diverse, and it has to be where one treats each other with equality, and so much of that needs to be mandated in federal law, unfortunately, because change is difficult to happen unless you have the statutory authority to back up your change.
What are your thoughts on the impact of Sandoval and amending Title VI?
I think it would be very helpful to amend Title VI to make it clear that Congress did, initially and does now intend for there to be a private right of action under Title VI disparate impact regulations. I think that would be very helpful in terms of allowing communities access to the courts instead of an administrative process which has proven not to be much of a remedy for them at all.
What are your thoughts on the impact of Sandoval and amending Title VI?
This was a huge one. We had a case. I was working at the Natural Resources Defense Council, and colleagues of mine, including one colleague who was here at this meeting, Sheila Foster, and another colleague of ours, Luke Cole, in the Bay Area, they worked with South Camden Legal Services to bring a major Title VI case that they actually won at the New Jersey Supreme Court. And they got the most exhaustive decision by the Supreme Court Justice in New Jersey that really advanced environmental justice at a substantive way. A week later, the Sandoval decision came down from the U.S. Supreme Court and vacated the case in New Jersey behalf of citizens of Camden, New Jersey. It cut right to the core of so many of the fundamental issues that environmental justice is about. And if we don't fix it, we're never going to be able to prevail in federal court. So it has to be fixed. It has to be rectified.
What are your thoughts on the impact of Sandoval and amending Title VI?
Well, I think Sandoval was a significant setback, and but maybe if there's a silver lining, it puts the spotlight on the inadequacies of our current laws in dealing with racial disparities in toxic exposures and their possible linkages to health. So what I've seen is a lot more discussion about needing to amend the laws so as to make it more possible for people to bring their cases of discrimination to the court and actually get remedies that are helpful to people, rather than, again, resulting in just more policy statements. I think there's an opportunity here, again, to put the spotlight on the weaknesses of our current civil rights laws and environmental laws, and to try to strengthen them.
What are your thoughts on the impact of Sandoval and amending Title VI?
I don't have deep thoughts about, because I don't practice in a way that will constantly apply Sandoval. I can tell you this, that as someone who is closely related to someone in the civil rights community, who's one of the leading attorneys in civil rights, I've seen the impact of Sandoval on pulling away civil rights community from working very closely with environmental activists. And I think it's a tragedy. There has been a marriage that has occurred recently, particularly in the Dixon, Tennessee case, and I hope that there can be more opportunities for that kind of thing to occur, because environmental justice is in part about civil rights.
What are your thoughts on the impact of...
Well, I think Sandoval has had a really crushing impact on the ability to really get traction using Title VI. It should be rescinded and processes open up whereby the EPA can deal with actions coming out of communities and use really its enforcement power to be able, if at will, if state departments are not complying with federal regulations, to do something very meaningful about that. And I think that Sandoval has hamstrung the agency, and I think DOJ will not move forward in helping, and that it has to be regulation, act of Congress to swing the pendulum away from Sandoval.
What are your thoughts on the impact of Sandoval and amending Title VI?
Well, we have to restore the private right of action to Title VI, to Title VI. I think that there's, there's some opportunities, and that we will do that. I'm very confident we will do it. There's a couple mechanisms to do it, but yeah, we have to restore private right of action to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It's very, very important.
What are your thoughts on the impact of Sandoval and amending Title VI?
I think that's going to be a huge it's going to need to be a huge priority in terms of an important legislative fix. And that's not only going to be important for environmental justice, but it's going to be also probably an important fix for civil rights as well. That the sort of private right of action is kind of a key tool to ensure that laws that are on the books can be adequately enforced. And when the Supreme Court sort of gutted that, I think there needs to be a legislative fix in the same way that we've fixed some bad Supreme Court decisions in the past in civil rights legislation.